Why must these men work in perfect unison?
What food comes out of a machine like this?
Who makes the sweetest paper in the world?
Where did the modern sled originate?
Industry on Parade, Peabody Award winner for public service, produced on film each week by the National Association of Manufacturers. We know some people who own a marble quarry at Tate, Georgia. Let's drop in on them. Now that we've taken a second look, maybe we'd better not drop in, but make the trip down by elevator. When we do, we find what are known as channeling machines, busy sawing slots into the stone floor of the quarry. After all four sides have been cut, the blocks are broken loose like this, with wedges pounded home in perfect unison. A block moves to the surface for transportation to the mill. This pit at present is 160 feet deep, but will go to 300 before the marble is exhausted. To exhaust all the marble in the area will take an estimated 3,600 years, which means there's plenty of work yet to be done here at the Georgia Marble Company. Work like that done by sculptors who lovingly chip and carve classical or modernistic figures to grace the facade of a beautiful building or monument. Work like that done by the grinding wheels that shape tall, stately columns, perfectly round and perfectly tapered. The abrasive is silicon carbide, carborundum. This 7,000-pound column section will help support and beautify a new office building right here in Georgia at Macon. Marble is sawed into slabs like this on huge gang saws, which take about 24 hours to complete a series of cuts in an 18-ton block. The chemical name for marble is calcium carbonate, and in powder or chip form, it has a wide variety of applications in industry and agriculture. Thus, the plant waste is not really waste at all. Small pieces that break off when slabs are guillotined into strips will find as ready a market, sometimes even a readier market, than the stone that remains intact. Both in the quarry and here in the mill, the odd chunks that are cut off or break off are all collected. They'll be shipped over to the plant maintained by the company's Calcium Products Division to be processed into pigments for paint or into grits that are a necessary element in the diet of poultry or into aggregate for roofing, to mention just 3 of marble's lesser known but highly important applications. A series of crushers, hammer mills, grading screens, air separators, centrifuges, and washers bring the stone to precisely the particle size, uniformity, and purity required for each of the many end uses it could be put to. Marble is an important industry in Georgia, and by constantly uncovering new uses for the stone through research, the industry stabilizes production. The community is no longer dependent solely on sales to construction companies, nor, for that matter, on poultry raisers or any other single element of the economy. Now, if one sales outlet falls off, perhaps another will take up the slack. Currently, a product that's going great guns is the roofing aggregate. Embedded in a tar-like substance, the marble chips look pretty, reflect heat, shed grime, and wear indefinitely. Good news for home builders, and even better news for a lot of people here in Georgia.
Today's management recognizes that human progress must go hand in hand with mechanical and scientific advances. Thus, hundreds of manufacturing companies provide positions for handicapped persons so that they, like all of us, may gain the human dignity and personal satisfaction of being productive and earning a good income. Properly fitted to his job, the handicapped worker usually proves that he is equal and sometimes superior to other workers in work performed, attendance, safe working habits, and attitude toward his job. Industry welcomes physically handicapped workers.
Industry on parade visits a cracking plant. Not a petroleum refinery, obviously, but the Portland plant of the Northwest Nut Growers, where the cracking operation consists of separating nut meats from their shells. Many tons of these walnuts and filberts will be cleaned, graded, and packaged in the shells, of course, but most of them will be delivered to customers ready to eat. How would you shell this many nuts? For years, it was done by machines that worked more or less like a hand nut cracker. But like a hand nut cracker, too often it crushed the meat along with the shell. Now it's done with a quick charge of high voltage, high amperage electricity. Inside one of the machines, 25 nut shells are exploded every second, leaving the then the mechanical cracker, a machine that does it with electricity. Who knows what's next?
Thousands of tons of bagasse piled up at the Valentine Pulp and Paper Company mill near Lockport, Louisiana. Know what bagasse is? It's what is left of sugarcane stalks after the sugar has been removed. Formerly used only as fuel for the furnaces of sugar factories, it now is shipped here to be converted into paper, a product we Americans consume in greater quantity every year. The baled bagasse is fed onto a chopper whose blades break it into tiny fragments. The dried, shredded stalks are nothing more than cellulose fiber, which is what wood is when the rosin that holds the fibers together has been removed. Here the fibers are mixed with water, bleach, and other materials, including chemicals that prevent the fibers from becoming brittle. It was only by overcoming the problem of brittleness that the sugar chemists were able to launch this new industry. The mixture, called slurry, flows out into a wide moving belt. Gravity and vibration cause the water to drain out through tiny openings in the belt, leaving the fibers matted together in a thin, continuous sheet. This damp sheet will now be passed over rollers on which heat and pressure will convert it into paper. Paper is only one of a number of valuable byproducts emerging from the sugar industry. In fact, so many chemicals, waxes, drugs, synthetic resins, and other inedibles are being made of sugar that if we don't watch out, we might forget sugar is still one of our most important foods.
In America, the capital that has always been used to start new businesses has come from people, individuals who have saved a part of their income and who have invested it in some kind of a business enterprise. They invested their savings in order to have a future income out of what their savings could produce for them. These people risked their money in new enterprises in the hope of reward, the hope of a profit. These are the investments which purchase the improved plants, the new tools and machines that create jobs, increase production, and raise our living standards.
A favorite weather forecast of comedians reads, snow, followed by small boys with sleds. But it has not always been so. Until this Philadelphia company got into sled manufacturing in 1889, sleds were for large boys only, large boys and grown men. It was the fast, lightweight, steerable model we see here, invented by the father of Charles Allen, the man on the left, that sent the cumbersome, rigid wooden sled into oblivion. 65 years later, modern versions of the flexible flyer are still turned out in great numbers here at S.L. Allen & Company, Incorporated. Manufacturing techniques have changed in the intervening years, and sled runners now are formed on machines that didn't exist in 1889, but the basic principle remains the same. This sounds like a very happy business, making devices that bring so much innocent pleasure to children. And it is a happy company. But even more heartwarming is the reason why flexible flyers were put into production in the first place. Until 1889, the company had manufactured only farm machinery. Sleds were added to eliminate seasonal unemployment during the slack season for the company's primary product. Even today, manufacture of farm equipment like these 2.5 horsepower miniature tractors begins around the first of the year and pretty well tapers off by summer. But does that mean a prolonged layoff each year for employees in the plant? No, not since Sam Allen introduced diversification in the form of sleds. Now, when these men finish one production run, they start immediately on another, right in the same factory. After the year's orders for tractors have been filled or stockpiled, they'll turn perhaps to hand seeders, their very first product, and one that's still going strong. This brings not only year-round employment, but the economies of sustained mass production that wouldn't otherwise be possible for a company with just one seasonal product. After seeders, still another addition to the line, skis. In more than 100 operations, 23 separate pieces of hickory are glued together to become just one ski. When the glued wood segments have been set in place, the press is closed, forcing the pieces together and giving them uniform ski shape. Then the temperature in the room will be raised to 220 degrees for 40 minutes to set the waterproof glue permanently. There are 300 people working here today, and while no one can guarantee it, chances are very good they'll still be busy 3 months, 6 months, 9 months, or a year from now, taking home steady paychecks, not just because they thought it would be nice, but because old Sam Allen took the first steps toward bringing it about in a practical manner.